Perfect. All right, we'll get started. Hello, my name is Danny Quist, K1HYL. I've been a ham for a ridiculously long time. If you're wondering, I was 14 years old, and so now you know my age. I started out with my technician back when you had to actually take a Morse code test, and got the extra through the years, and I'm a malware analysis and a CTO when I'm earning money for radio. Here with me is John.
Hi, I'm John Marler. I haven't been a ham quite as long as him. I've been listening to ham for a long time, but I got my ham license here at DEF CON 27, the technician, got general in 28, and then extra in 29. I'm a Doraemon. My hobbies are bowling and curling, so that's why those are up there. They actually have curling here in Las Vegas, surprisingly enough, and they had it back where I lived in Texas. So, anyways, fun fact. Thank you.
Okay, so that's who we are. So the question here, the talk is, you've got your license, what do you do with it? And I give the volunteer examiner test next door, and that's always the question that we get. They get your license, you pass the test, you've got it, okay, now what? Why are you nerds so into this, right? Why is it so much fun? So I really want to make this is a high level talk. Other talks here are going to go way more in depth into what I'm doing. So if you're relying on anything for technical information, don't listen to me. Listen to the people that are giving the more technical talks. This is just what to do or what I like to do, my opinion of how this works, and then also John's opinion, and we're going to go there. So the first question that I run into is, what do you want to do? And there's a whole bunch of different types of people, and I'm not going to make assumptions, but looking at the audience, I already have. Some people do not like to talk to other people. I'm just going to throw that out there, right? Perhaps talking about nothing for hours on end does not make sense to you. But there's other people that really like to go into detail about their heart problems on the air and stuff like that. So if you really want to talk to people and develop these personal relationships, you can do that. That's not really where I'm at. I kind of like how far can I make this little radio talk to people in far off places. And I love collecting QSL cards, so we'll go into that. But there's other parts of this. So not just the long conversations, but contesting. That is a rabbit hole you can get into. The idea of these is typically to talk to as many people as quickly as possible. It's usually a set number of hours, and it can be on anything from sideband, which is voice. So you can talk that way. That's where Field Day is. They have Morse code or CW contests too. So if you get into that, that's a whole thing, and it's fun. It's just an hour of intense work, and then you get a whole bunch of contacts, and then the ARRL starts sending you Worked All States awards. So it's great. It's a good situation. I really like it. That kind of took it over for me. The other thing is if you don't want to talk to people, there's a whole bunch of data modes that are out there right now. And that's been kind of the big change, I think, in the last little bit with ham radio, is that we're really starting to get behind all them computer things. So there's just so much hardware out there right now, cheap radios. How many of you own a Baofeng, a little $20 radio in the audience? Okay, side note, how many of you turned that radio on and said, there's nobody talking on this thing, what do I do with it? Yeah, okay, some of you. The center group seems to be the social crowd, because they look at me and they're like, I love talking about my heart condition. I don't know what you're talking about, so just, yeah. Okay, the next thing is hardware hacking, and I think that's where we have a lot of tie-in with the DEF CON crowd. Recently got into this, and it's just fascinating. It's really fun to build a radio yourself and reach out and talk to people on it, and actually get there. But that's kind of late in the deal when you're getting started. Just initially, you don't know what the radios are, and then let's say that you go to hamradio.com or I should say DX Engineering, because they gave us free stuff, but one of the ham radio retailers, and he's like, I want a radio, and then you'll have this huge array of complicated black boxes with marketing material around them that have all sorts of features that you don't know what the heck they are, and it's really hard to pick out the right one, right? Infinite money, you can have a really great radio, but getting started, you don't need to spend a whole lot of money on one. And so there's kind of a range of options. So you want to match your rig to, rig is what we call our radios, so you can be cool. It's rig. So we match the radio to our operating style. And so if you're going to do contesting, you want a radio that can like transmit 100% for hours and hours on end. If you're just going to occasionally use it for an hour or two, just hanging out or just talk to people, like something smaller with a duty cycle like an ICOM 7300 is great. So these are just kind of radios. I picked these out at random. This is not an endorsement of any of these radios. The QMX is pretty cool. But the rest of these are just basically workhorses. And so what they have is that they have, you know, the standard radio receiver. They do CW or Morse code. They have sideband. And then past that, what you're paying for is awesome filters and features and basically contest things and duty cycle. Is that fair? Yeah. John, keep me honest here.
Yeah, and also like things like digital modes. Some of the radios are easier to connect to a computer. They have built-in USB ports and sound cards, so that's also something.
Yeah, so if you're getting into this and you want to do the digital modes, just make sure the radio that you're getting has a sound card built into it. Most of them, it's just basically a USB thing that you plug into, and then it makes a sound card device on your computer. It's much easier than the garbage we used to use. But most of them do that now, so just try to stick with that. ICOM is kind of like the Toyota of the ham radio world. It's reliable, it just works. You turn it on and there's no fussing with it. Yaesu's the same way, but like the buttons are different, and like you'll hear people argue about various things, but you know, for the most part, the feature set is almost the same. And I had to put, what's that?
They're both made in Japan.
Yeah, both made in Japan. I have a Flex Radio 6300. This is a software-defined radio. It's really great, but it's got its problems too. So the key thing to remember is that all of these radios suck. They're awful. You're going to have to fidget with them. Things are not going to work. You're going to have to patch and update them and that sort of thing, just because this is a moving and shifting field. The other thing is if you get a radio and it's brand new and it's been released like the month before, do not expect that thing to work. Just like everybody gets really upset. Oh, I paid $2,000 for this radio and I can't patch it. For all of time that I can remember, every time there's a new radio, it does not work, especially all these software radios, and you just have to wait 6 months for it to happen. So that's just a general warning that if it's really important for this to work right away out of the box and maybe it's your first experience, buy an older radio. And there's lots of used stuff out there, so that's it. But generally, you want to get, I always recommend somebody to get something that puts out about 100 watts. You can go a lot cheaper with QRP. Well, QRP means lower power. But like 100 watts is good, especially with the solar cycle. We're at the top, now we're heading down. All that means is that radio waves are not going to bounce around the world, and it's going to be a lot harder. And power solves some of those problems, but mostly complaining on the internet is how you get around the other ones. With that. And then there's portable radios. So there's some that are shoebox size, and you can see them out on all these tables here. And actually downstairs there's a station. And then after that, if you're in areas that have a lot of neighborhood noise, like so I live in a HOA, and thankfully all our power lines are buried, but there's like transmitters around, and it's a city, right? So you have a lot of stuff. A lot of these go like a little bit extra for filtering it out so that you can pick signals out of noise and that sort of stuff. But you don't need that right away, or maybe you do. Yeah, just push the money button. Do violence to credit cards. Okay, so now you have a radio. We're going through all the components to get on the air. This is a push you on the air type thing. So you've got your radio, and now you want to get on the air. You got to worry about an antenna, and this is kind of the fun part for me. You have two options here. You can do build versus buy. I have found that the amount of dickering around with antennas and getting them tuned and stuff like that with a commercial antenna is about the same as like building it myself, like depending, right? I'm not like building a complex multi-element radial vertical or that sort of stuff. I'm talking about wire antennas. But really the constraints are how much money do you have and what are the limits on your housing area? You need space for these antennas. So HF antennas by design are like a 20-meter antenna, which is first HF antenna I recommend. It's like 33 feet in length. Is it for a dipole? About that? Thank you. So you just have to have a place to put it. You can get other antennas, and you'll see them around here, and if you go downstairs to the get on the air station, you can see another one. They'll be much smaller. So when you make things smaller, you have to make compromises, and that's the problem. So if you're in an HOA, you're just kind of limited. And I gave a couple talks about how to like take over the HOA at previous ham radio villages. A lot of work, but and it didn't work. But I got a lot of work. But basically, it's just a hard environment. So you got to do that. So you do have some options for what to do. When you're first starting out, the very easiest thing to build is a dipole. It's a wire. You cut it in half. If you're feeling really spicy and adventurous, you can just put one end on the shield of the coax and the other one on the center connector. But why don't we do that? Anybody? Is there any RF engineers in the audience? This is your chance to shine. I am not an RF engineer, but I love saying wrong things for them to correct me on. So if you're out there, identify yourself. Okay. When you do that, it makes the coax into an antenna or part of the antenna. And what'll happen is if when you put power on it, like let's say you follow my bad advice or good advice to get a 100-watt radio, and you put 100 watts on that coax, it's suddenly going to radiate through your house, and you'll have TVs turning off and on. And then you get to turn into the wonderful topic of RF interference, which is just great. But you can skip all that by using a choke. You can see I made that mistake building antennas. So. Like this doesn't have a lot of things like how to build an antenna. There's other workshops here to do that. There's very good resources on this. The ARRL is they have an antenna book that's extremely good. It has plans for it. It's written in plain English. You only have to know a little bit of you have to know no calculus to understand it, but it's easy. Like if you can just divide numbers, you're fine. Okay, so so you've got your antenna, you've got your radio. Now you need to connect your radio to your antenna, and so you have to get coax, and this is the feed line. The key thing that you have to worry about with feed line is the frequencies that it works on. So each one of these manufacturers will have a set of frequencies where it's very efficient, and then it'll have dB drops at certain levels. And so what that means is like for HF, you just got to buy this special type of thing, and like. You can just buy LMR 400. That's the end of this thing. LMR 400 is great. It does everything for the most part. If you get into weird things like microwave and that sort of stuff, you have to start using more exotic hard lines and that sort of stuff. But in general, you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff out there. Buy the good stuff. It's going to be stiff, so you're going to have to work with like moving around corners and that sort of thing, but it's okay. There will also be thinner things like RG58 that are a little bit more portable, and I would probably guess it's most of what you're going to see here. That's fine, and especially when you're working like mobile or parks on the air or those sorts of things, go for that. But like at your home, give yourself every advantage and just buy the LMR 400. It's more expensive, but it's a buy once, cry once. This is the thing I see people like spending money on over and over and over and over again, so that's the big thing. For portable field ops, there's flexible ones that are there. And then the next thing is the connectors. If you're just getting started, at least for me, I'm not like a hardware guy. I've learned how to solder and do all of that, but it didn't come to me naturally. And I had a lot of trouble soldering these ends on. And I don't think people talk about the trauma that it takes to solder those ends on, but it's like a lot of heat, and I just wasn't prepared for that. Anyway, you can buy them pre-manufactured at DX Engineering, one of the sponsors of the village. They make them in predefined lengths, and then you can do it. There's a whole bunch of manufacturers that do the same thing. So,
yeah, don't try to solder yourself.
John says not to try to solder yourself, but that doesn't sound very adventurous to me. It's like I had to prove myself I could do it. So once you make your antenna, you can just cut the wires. You can follow the formulas online, and basically just have an antenna. It'll look like an antenna, and you plug it into your radio, and nobody will hear you. Okay, so this is the part of ham radio that I like, which is that we have a test with a lot of technical information that you have to memorize, but really you just have to pass the test. This is the real test. This is where you let the cold, cruel world of physics educate you about how radio and electrons and all this sort of stuff work. So the key way around this is that you need to worry about this thing called SWR, which is a standing wave ratio. And so this is where I'm going to like really annoy the RF people. layman's terms, you want the SWR to be as close to 1-to-1 and not reflect your signal back to each other. And it's basically tuning your radio to your feed line and your antenna to get out. So most people, when they're building antennas, they get to as close to 1-to-1 as they can. And then they're like, great, this is perfect. And they try to get on the air and it doesn't work. You can get a well-tuned SWR on an antenna and it still sucks. That is a hard lesson to learn too. And so how do you get around that? So there's a couple of things. Number one, don't invent anything yet. Follow the dipole thing, or get an end-fed half-wave kit from ARRL or anything really, and do that. The next thing is this nano VNA. Usually we have a few of them out here, but this nano VNA is a vector network analyzer. And these things used to be like $20,000 and $30,000, and I'd only see them in like the labs at work and stuff like that, and they would never let me connect my antennas to them. So now, like on Amazon, that was like $50. You get this full thing that'll make Smith charts for you and everything. That's like way above me, but it'll give you a good graph of like where your SWR is. What you do with a dipole is you tune it, you cut off a little bit until it gets to where you want it, gets to the frequency you want it, and then that's how you do that. And then once you have that, a well-tuned antenna, and your radio works, then you're ready to get on the air. So now everything's plugged in. Maybe your radio is making nice blinking noises on it, and it's got a nice spectrum graph like here, and you're like, I have no idea what to do. This is where YouTube is your friend. There's lots of people that will tell you how to use it if you're struggling that way. You can read the manual. It may help. But usually it's been patched also in the process too, so you want to keep an eye on that. Okay, so these are the modes listed in the order of social anxieties. So there's a rule here. Okay, I didn't want to write it down. The more room people have for expressive behavior, the more opinions you're going to hear on the air. And there are certain frequencies on HF at night where you're going to hear a lot of opinions with a lot of alcohol applied to them. And so ignore those guys. And it's all politics, and they're all weird, and it's just obnoxious, and people, it's crazy. And they get like their license taken away from them, and they get back on. And just avoid HF voice at night. Or I would just say, like, avoid voice just outside of a contest, because, like, I don't know. Morse code, dits and das, like the beeping and stuff like that, if you've ever heard of that. It's a much slower mode. So the racism doesn't go in there very quickly. It's, like, really hard to tap that out. So also good. But keep it under about 20 words a minute, because you can also buy these CW decoders online that are very good, and you can start decoding the guys that are going really fast, and they're problematic also. In different ways, yes. And then the final one, which is my favorite one, which is FT8. How many here love FT8? Does anybody hate it? Will anybody go on record as hating it? It's my crap-eating grin. You know better, like we've learned by this point. Okay, FT8 is great. All you do is you say who you are, who you're talking to, and how well you hear them, and maybe your location. But usually that's part of it. And that's it. That's the conversation. So like for me, when I'm making an antenna and I want to see how far I can get out in the world, that's like the end of it, right? It's like a 10 or a 30-second exchange, and then you're done. It's pretty good. You do have to use a computer for it. It does take a lot of it away. It's a little less operating skill, but it's kind of fidgety to get set up. So there's a lot of hate for it. Like in the ham radio community, you talk to the old people, which I guess I am one now. But like you talk to them, they're like, "That's not operating. You got to talk to people and work on the Morse code." And no, it's a completely legitimate thing to me.
It's very satisfying.
And it's very satisfying. You get instant gratification. There's no question about like, am I saying the right words in the right order, and are people making fun of me? The answer is yes, they are making fun of you, but that's okay. Everybody makes mistakes on here. Just go crazy. Okay, hardware hacking kits. These are great. They've gotten really good lately. These are really cheap. So if you're electronically inclined or not afraid of a soldering iron, this is good. I really like this QMX. It puts out 5 watts. It's $100 for the kit, or at least it used to be. I think it's like 180 or 200 assembled, but I mean the guy assembles it in his kitchen, so just order the kit. Order 2 kits, especially if you haven't done this before, because you'll break the first one if you're me. So this is good. It teaches you stuff like how a filter works, right? How to wind a toroid. You know, how to like actually prevent your signal from going out. Like it shows you where it is. It doesn't make you do any exercises around it, but it's pretty clear. You get good skills with that. You can build custom stuff. So like one of my projects is to build a filter system for contesting and that sort of stuff. And it's basically like an open hardware laboratory. There's lots of things out there to get into, and you'll see lots of things out. So it's great. The big thing about these kits is that most of them are through-hole soldering, so that's like the easy mode soldering. And then some of them have surface mount stuff, which I personally are scared of, but that's just because I haven't done much of it. So, like John keeps telling me, don't be a coward, Danny. Okay, so these are your options. So what you want to do is you want to get on the radio as quickly as possible, and you want to get that first contact to let the bug sit inside of your head and get that dopamine release. And then once you get into it, you be nice and obsessed, and then it's just this full all-consuming hobby once you find out what you're interested in. I have presented this stuff here. Around here is a bunch of other people that are having fun with their areas of the hobby, and it's great. I like building antennas. That's a very satisfying thing for me, especially figuring out how far I can get out there. And then finally, choose your mode. So voice, digital, FT8, and there's all sorts of new things being invented all the time. So if you're into like software development for these things, like Vara HF is like a store and forward email system now that you can get onto an HF and just send emails over to anywhere. Like, that's great. All sorts of fun stuff out there. The other thing to do is, like, if you're in an HOA and you're in an environment where you can't put up a big antenna, go buy a tent and go camping. You can go to a national park and like get the good arborist bags and stuff to be nice to the trees, but you can put just like crazy antennas up as long as it doesn't obstruct everything. And it's, bring the Ranger a 12-pack on the way in, and like there will be no problems, right? And that's a great way to do it. So like, Field Day is a good one. Parks on the Air is another like side. It's not a contest, but it's a contest. It's just a fun way to go out. You go into a national park, you sit on your radio, and then like you're the one that everybody wants to talk to. They're picking you out of the noise, and it's just a lot of fun. So that's it. So now that I have thoroughly made fun of SSB and talking on voice, I'm going to hand it over to John. And everybody give John a round of applause. I think this is his 19th talk here this week. Is that right?
Close to my 19th. Actually, keep clapping here for Danny here. That was actually fantastic. Thank you very much. So what I'm going to talk about is a little more simple. He's kind of gone through the whole process of how do I get on high frequency and how do I buy a radio. I've already seen that a bunch of you just have one of these handheld radios. We don't call them walkie-talkies. I don't know why people are sensitive about it. They get all upset. Don't call it a walkie-talkie. That's a toy. This is a real radio. So say you bought your Pofong or your Quansheng and you've got your radio and you're like, okay, I heard Danny's talk. I'm not ready to commit yet. I'm still exploring my options. I'm not ready to commit. I have my little handheld. How do I talk on my handheld? The best way to get online with a handheld is what we call a net, a ham net. There's basically 2 kinds of ham nets. We run a net here at DEF CON. It is an undirected net. Do I have a typo in my slide deck?
No,
undirected. Well, I'm not going to explain what that means to y'all. Y'all figure it out.
He was on HF late at night.
I told y'all I do SSTV. I didn't tell you what I post. The difference between a directed net and an undirected net is, do you have a net controller? The net controller is a person who, I'll get more into it, but there's basically a person who's in charge of the network. Undirected is more like where it's anarchy. Like we're just gonna we're all agreeing to kind of obey and good little boys and girls and not talk over each other. So how do you do that? The easiest way to get on a net is there's this concept of a thing called a repeater, and we have a repeater running back there. A repeater is a big radio with a big antenna, and you can configure this little radio so that you talk to the repeater on one channel and it broadcasts on a different channel. It's kind of like if he asks me a question and I hear his question and then I repeat the question to everybody hears me because I have a microphone. Only his neighbors can hear him. It's the same kind of concept. That's the easiest way if you have one of these tiny little radios, because you think like, how can I talk to somebody that's 20 miles away that's got a tiny little rubber ducky antenna? How do I do that? You do that through a repeater.
Or you can use HF.
Oh, or you can use HF. Yes, I mean, yes, there is HF that does exist. We remember. So there's a whole bunch of different directed ham nets. So directed ham nets, you're usually going to find those with your amateur radio emergency services or the APRS. It's a bunch of really old dudes. Some younger people. They have a lot of opinions, as you've mentioned, about a lot of things. They will tell you that digital modes are not ham radio. But you can get on there and you can talk to them on that. There's going to be an APRS in your city. There's going to be an APRS probably in your state and one in your county. There's a whole bunch of those. Just Google it and find it. The thing that's different about a directed net is there's rules about how you talk on a directed net. There's kind of like a protocol. So what I do when I want to get into a new net, like the first time I connected to OMIS, which is on HF, just listen, just like tune to it and listen. And it's kind of like learning a new language. Like I'm learning Japanese. And so like when I'm in Japan, I listen to how people order coffee at the Starbucks. And then I just say that rather than what the book told me, because the book told me is wrong. So do the same thing when you're on the net. Just like listen to it. You think like, oh, okay, they're going to call and they say, okay, who's checked in? Are you there? Well, you didn't know it, but you have to check in on a website, and then they're going to call your call sign. You might not know that. And then they're going to say, is there anybody who's listening that wants to register that hasn't registered on the website? And then you hear some people say their names. You say, oh, okay, now it's my time to talk. So that's kind of like what I do is I just kind of listen a couple of times. Also, like you want to listen a couple times, figure out like, do I want to participate in this? Like, is this all religious and all religion and all politics all the time? I got the internet. I can do that. So just listen to it. Some of the nets are actually pretty cool. They're local nets, and you find out like cool things that are happening in your city with people who are also interested in ham radio. So you have a common interest. You can be good friends. But the thing to notice about, or the thing to really know about a directed ham net is there will be a controller. They will take control of the net. Like if you listen to like when APRS gets activated for a disaster and they're trying to coordinate disaster release, those are always directed nets because you kind of want to have somebody controlling that. And they might change controllers throughout the day or throughout the night, or if it's a multi-day event, they'll definitely be changing controllers all throughout. Because they're directed, you'll get official QSOs. A QSO is basically, I talked to you, I told you how I received you, you told me how you received me. We said, okay, thanks, bye, love you, mean it, call me.
I think your exchange is signal report.
Yeah, signal report. So if you check in on the net and they ask for signal report, you'll get an official QSO. You might get a card from the net, depending on the net. Some nets you have to pay to be a member of, but they can't stop you from broadcasting, so they can't really. If you just speak up and start talking, I've been on nets and I speak up and start talking, and then I go look at their website and I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to pay for that. Oh, yeah, okay. Nope. They don't send you a card. If you pay for it, they'll send you cards. Cards are cool. Sometimes you get cards, but you will get a QSO at least in QRZ or in the Logbook of the World or somewhere like that. What's that? Don't pay for cards. Absolutely don't pay for cards. So what's an uncontrolled net? Nobody's in charge. It's anarchy. Usually there are like if it's like a little local thing in your city, they might have a website. They talk about their rules and protocols and procedures. Ha. It's pretty loose. We run an undirected net, an uncontrolled net here at DEF CON. Nobody's on the controller. Yeah, there's kind of like rules. I mean, obviously DEF CON has code of conduct. Don't break the code of conduct. That's bad, in all seriousness. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot of rules on the net here that we have. So again, same rule applies. Just kind of listen to what people are saying and figure out how to do it. Most of the time, people are pretty chill, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you want a really easy way to get on nets, there's this app called NetLogger, and NetLogger will show you what nets are currently active, what frequency they're on, who's in the net, who's logged in, who's checked in. Like with OMIS, their controllers are really active and they use all the software. You can chat inside the app. You can see where everybody is. There's this concept in ham radio called your grid coordinates. Every square inch on the planet is in a grid, and you can say I'm in K8 or K8W or whatever it is, K86. EM34. Yeah. So they go from big to small. So like you can tell someone I'm in North America or I'm in Pflugerville, Texas, in this tiny little subdivision of an HOA. So you can get as specific or as general as you want. But NetLogger is great because you can go and look and see. You don't have to like go look at a million websites to figure out what nets are online right now. Makes it extremely easy. There's other systems online to do that. This is a few different URLs that you can copy, take a screenshot or whatever. The Hurricane Watch Nest. If you ever want to like listen to how the amateur radio operators work with first responders during something like a hurricane, definitely pay attention to Hurricane Watch Net, and you can hear that on HF, and it's fascinating. So I'm going to pass this back.
All right, we've covered lots of topics here. Hopefully this has gotten you started on there. One thing I do want to say is that we've made a lot of light of like really obnoxious people. 99% of the conversations you're going to have on ham radio are going to be about your antenna and your radio. Let's keep it that way. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. So thank you very much. I'll be around for a little bit. Happy to answer questions. Utilize the audience. Anybody in a blue shirt here, but really anybody with the radio. Pick up on them and just get there. There's plenty of people willing to help out. We run a Discord. It's a very active ham radio Discord, and the group is great, and people are fun, and they're doing fun stuff. So if you want to jump on there, that's great. And that's it. Thank you very much.